This video is sponsored by War Thunder. An aircraft carrier is a floating city built around a busy and dangerous airport. It can launch fully loaded fighter jets, one after the other, in under 2 seconds. But it can also cut you in half in a blink of an eye if you're not good at playing extreme jump rope. But why the E-2 Hawkeye is the first aircraft that's launched at the start of each cycle? Why naval aircraft wings were designed to fold instead of just being built smaller? Why the Navy removed the built-in gun from the F-35C? And why some maritime aircraft routinely shut off one of their engines mid-flight is not what you think. On the surface, naval aircraft look quite similar to the aircraft that are operated by the Air Force. But because of the huge amounts of stress exerted on their airframes during catapult launches and on their landing gear during arrested landings, the Navy has to order special variants of these airplanes. These carrier-capable variants not only have reinforced components, but they also typically have longer wings compared to their Air Force counterparts. The wings are longer to generate more lift, because the runway is much shorter, 300 feet on an aircraft carrier compared to 6,000 feet on the ground. And because there is only so much room inside aircraft carriers, those longer wings need to be foldable for more efficient handling and storage. The E-2 Hawkeye is simply a radar in the sky. But why put a radar up there when the ships in a carrier strike group are equipped with state-of-the-art radar systems such as the AN Spy-1? The answer is simple, but you're gonna have a hard time believing it if you're a flat earther. The average person standing at sea level looking at the horizon can see less than 3 miles away due to the curvature of the Earth. But if you put that person on top of Mount Everest, assuming the air is completely clear, they can see almost 200 miles away. The same goes for radars. When the E-2 flies at 30,000 feet, its radars can see threats that are over 200 miles away. This radar data is then transmitted to the carrier strike group in real time. Detecting the threats at long range provides additional time for the commanders, and those extra few seconds is what enables them to make the appropriate decision and respond effectively to neutralize the threat. In fact, the entire business of early warning systems is about staying one step ahead of the other guy. And the E-2 Hawkeye provides this advantage by tracking up to 300 low and high altitude targets, like airplanes, ships, and missiles that fall within its surveillance volume of over 3 million cubic miles. This is why they call the Hawkeye the eyes of the fleet. Now, you might be thinking that the main reason why the E-2 is always launched first from the flight deck is so that it can keep an eye on the situation before the rest of the friendly aircraft are launched. But that's not the reason. The E-2 is a big, bulky airplane, and airplane handlers don't particularly enjoy being too close to its menacing propellers. The truth is that it's a pain in the butt to move this aircraft around the flight deck, so handlers just want to get it airborne before the flight deck gets busy. But there is one more reason. When the main engines of an airplane are shut off, it's the auxiliary power unit or APU that provides electrical power to various onboard systems. But the E-2 doesn't have an APU. So in its absence, the Hawkeye has to be plugged into a power source so the cabin air conditioning and other electronic systems can run until the engines are powered up. And this can be only done in a couple of spots on the flight deck. This is the other reason why the E-2 Hawkeye is the first aircraft catapulted and the last one recovered. Speaking of recovery, even the E-2 has had some close calls due to arresting wire malfunctions. Thankfully, the swift reaction of the pilot and the twin turboprop engines on the E-2 prevented a for sure disaster and turned it into a moment of pride for everyone on the flight deck of USS Eisenhower. By the way, it is possible to remove a damaged radome from the E-2, making the Hawkeye topless. And since the dome is installed on the center of gravity of the airplane, it is possible to fly the E-2 without the radome on. But the biggest threat to an aircraft carrier doesn't come from the sky. It comes from down under. And if you want to experience the thrill of air, sea, and land combat yourself, you should play War Thunder for free. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made and has one of the most sophisticated vehicle damage models in gaming. Every vehicle is intricately modeled down to its individual components, anything from engines and fuel tanks to weapons and even the crew. So different types of armor, shells, and missiles behave like they would in real life. And thanks to the X-ray view, you see exactly what's been damaged with each hit, so you can adjust your next fire accordingly. Whether it's ships, aircraft, or tanks, this game offers an immersive experience with realistic graphics and authentic sound effects. So just like the other 70 million War Thunder players, you can enjoy epic PvP battles on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. And cherry on top, if you're new to this game or a returning player that hasn't played in at least 6 months, for a limited time you'll receive a massive bonus package which includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. So click the link below and play War Thunder for free. A lethal hit from a torpedo launched from a submarine can devastate a supercarrier. Torpedoes can be especially effective because, as opposed to other threats coming from the air, a submarine could sneak up to the carrier, which reduces the reaction time to the incoming torpedo. And this is where the MH-60 Seahawk helicopter comes into the picture. But how can a helicopter in the sky detect a submarine that's underwater? You see these tubes being loaded into the helicopter? They're called sonobuoys, and they come in different shapes and forms. Sonobuoys can be automatically launched or manually pulled out of their casing and then dropped into the water. Each sonobuoy is equipped with hydrophone sensors, which can detect underwater sounds. Some sonobuoys are quite sophisticated and unpack once in the water to set up their receiver and transmitter antennas. Aside from the MH-60 helicopters, which are carrier-borne, there's also another airplane which patrols the waters in search of submarines, the P-8 Poseidon. The P-8 doesn't operate from a carrier, but is like an office in the air and has a combat range of 1,200 nautical miles. This aircraft is also capable of launching sonobuoys to detect submarines. And upon detecting a threat similar to its predecessor, the P-3 Orion, the P-8 can also launch torpedoes and harpoon missiles in order to neutralize a threat. Interestingly, the P-3 Orion would quite often patrol with one of its 4 engines off to conserve fuel during long-range patrols that could last over 10 hours. But let's talk about the primary airplanes that this floating airport was built for. People still love talking about air-to-air combat and dogfights, but this has always been secondary. The primary mission of naval aviation is attacking surface targets. On American aircraft carriers, this is currently accomplished with the help of FA-18E and F variants of the Super Hornet and the F-35C Lightning II. But how do these two fighter jets compare? With a combat range of 770 miles, the F-35C has almost double the range of the FA-18 at 448 miles. This is thanks to the F-35s having the single most powerful engine ever installed on a fighter jet, the Pratt & Whitney F-135. This engine is the heartbeat of the F-35 and can generate over 40,000 pounds of thrust. The FA-18's 2 engines together generate the same amount of thrust. That said, having 2 engines provides redundancy in case one of the engines experience a malfunction. But even though the cruise speed and the maximum speed of these 2 airplanes are not that different, the F-35 has one massive advantage, and that's stealth. But stealth wasn't the reason why the F-35C doesn't come with a built-in gun. See, the Air Force variant of the airplane, the F-35A, has an internal gun, which is only exposed when firing. The F-35B and F-35C variants, however, do not have this internal gun, which actually provides an advantage. They traded the gun in for fuel, which gives the F-35C more range, and therefore the aircraft carrier can remain farther from the target. That said, if needed, the F-35C can be equipped with a pod under its belly, which holds a 25mm Gatling gun on the inside. Both fighters can carry up to 18,000 pounds of freedom. That said, the F-35s can only carry 5,000 pounds of those weapons inside their internal weapons bay. To carry internal and external weapons, the F-35 has to sacrifice its stealth capability. The F-35 also has the most advanced sensor suite of any fighter in history, one of which is the advanced electronic warfare capabilities to locate adversaries and disrupt attacks. But the F/A-18 Super Hornet doesn't have this capability, and therefore this next category of naval aircraft has to exist. The EA-18G Growler was built on the F/A-18 platform, but with added electronic warfare capabilities. Aside from jamming enemy radar and communication systems, the Growler can detect surface-to-air threats and neutralize them by jamming them. It can also carry anti-radiation missiles that are designed to home in on enemy radar signals. The EA-18G Growler essentially softens enemy defenses, which then allows the F/A-18 Super Hornets to penetrate heavily defended areas and attack them without ever being detected. But when it comes to the thousands of sailors who call aircraft carriers home, their favorite naval airplane is the one that brings in their Christmas letters and Amazon packages. The Carrier Onboard Delivery, or COD aircraft, is responsible for bringing on board anything from personnel and supplies to mail and Amazon orders, while the carrier is at sea. For decades, it was the C-2 Greyhound that fulfilled this role. The C-2 is actually a derivative of the E-2 Hawkeye, but it has a widened fuselage with a rear ramp for easier loading and unloading. Having shared airframes is a big advantage when it comes to maintaining these aircraft on board the supercarriers, given that they have many components in common, which simplifies parts inventory and maintenance efforts for the crew. But in 2009, the Navy started looking for a C-2 replacement, and in 2015, they announced a variant of the Osprey, designated as CMV-22B, as the successor. The fleet of C-2 Greyhounds are to be completely replaced by the Osprey by 2028. One of the advantages of using a tiltrotor instead of a fixed-wing aircraft is that the Osprey can take off and land like a helicopter but fly like a turboprop aircraft during long-range transits, a good mix of access and speed. But the Navy is also looking at one more type of aircraft, which has only become feasible in the last couple of decades. Unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, have also been making their way into naval aviation. For example, the MQ-25 Stingray. The Stingray can be launched from the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, similar to any other naval aircraft being catapulted. It's the first ever UAV which has been able to successfully provide fuel to other naval aircraft while in flight. This includes the Super Hornet, the E-2 Hawkeye, and the F-35. Without the Stingray, the only other aircraft that could be launched from a carrier for refueling missions is the Super Hornet itself. This is done with the help of refueling pods that can be attached under the belly of the aircraft. But the obvious disadvantage of using the F/A-18 Super Hornets as a refueling platform was exactly that: using a strike fighter as a refueling tanker. This in fact burned through the service life of many Super Hornets faster than initially anticipated. So the Stingray is a great addition. But not all naval drones have been successful. In July 2018, the initial operational test and evaluation of the MQ-8C Fire Scout was conducted aboard USS Coronado, an Independence-class littoral combat ship. The Fire Scout is an unmanned helicopter with autonomous takeoff and landing capabilities during day and night. Equipped with powerful cameras and sensors, this platform was intended to expand the reach of naval forces and reduce the risk to human pilots. That said, with a price tag of $28 million per unit, the cost wasn't quite worth the capability, and the Navy decided to put the Fire Scout in storage. So until the UAV technology matures, the E-2 Hawkeye and his crew continue to get the first shot of the catapult. Play War Thunder for free on PC or consoles using my link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus package, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. It's a limited time offer, so don't miss it.